This is the new EMEET SmartCam S600. It is a 4K web camera, so it can do 4K, 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second at 1080p, so that's nice specifications. And it is actually quite an affordable webcam, so it does have, on paper at least, high-end features in a very more affordable price point. Autofocus, auto light correction, 2 noise cancelling microphones and 88 degrees field of view. So a reasonable set of features there. Also we do have a built-in privacy shutter, that dial here. You do it with one finger. So that's neat. At the back, the actual input is a USB Type-C connection. However, this is a USB 2 webcam. I can tell by checking out the cable that comes with it. It is a USB Type 2 cable. If you look down there, you can just see it is an arrangement for USB Type 2. So there will be some sort of video compression as well going on here, but we'll see how that works out when we test this. The stand here looks pretty regular, something you sit on top of your monitor and you can adjust it, also side to side and angle adjustment up and down, and also threaded for a tripod. The lighting conditions in the room right now, it's daytime. I have a window behind the monitor. The blinds are partially down, so it's not super bright in the room. And the webcam's doing actually a pretty good job. Looking at the preview, it looks exactly what I'd expect it to look like, so it looks actually pretty reasonable. There's a little bit of graininess, but that's to be expected when you have not premium lighting in your room. But not too bad. I'd say it's looking pretty okay. Not exactly amazing, but if we turn on some lights, we can see what difference that makes. I've turned on the room lights, and I also have a couple of LED panels which I use for recording videos. So one's there, one's up there. This is one which is directly pointing at me. I can see that it is overexposing some of the skin tones on my hand here. The other LED light panel is not facing towards me, so it's more kind of ambient light bouncing around, but this one is directly pointing at me. And it's generally pretty good. I can definitely see that there's less graininess of the image, so that's actually pretty good. And I'd say it's just a small amount of extra lighting I've added to the room, and it's looking actually pretty reasonable. Okay, let's test the autofocus now. So let's bring in the box and check that out. So I'm super close up with this box, just maybe about 3 centimeters away, and detail's pretty good. Let's check out text at the back. So it's able to adjust pretty quickly. There's no problems there. And the detail on the box, being able to, the readability of that is actually pretty good. I'd say no complaints there. All looks pretty decent. I have the camera set at 60 frames per second at 1080p, and looking at the preview in OBS, there's no noticeable lag that I can tell. It's keeping up just fine, and despite this running over USB 2. The web camera comes with some optional software, so you don't need to use it, but you can do, and I'll show you now. It's called the EMEET Link software. So this is the window. So normally that would show the preview of the actual webcam feed, but since we are recording in OBS, you can only show to one output source. So that's quite normal. So down here we have some options here. So the one I will want to show you, which is quite useful if you want to make use of this, and that's the microphone noise reduction feature, which I'm not currently using, but I am recording all this audio through the microphone in the web camera, so you get a good example of how well that's working. But you can flip the camera, you can just see it behind what's going on, but yeah, you can flip it there. You can also go to landscape and portrait video, so like phone style portrait mode. I'm not going to change it now since it does cut out the camera. We can zoom the camera, so let me just hide that, and you can see you can change the field of view. So digital zoom effectively. So you can change that there. Let's bring that back up. And we have some filters which are not really worth using, to be fair. They just aren't really doing much there. But yeah, let me just show you. You've got black and white. Got a cartoon, which just makes everything look really oversaturated. And you can customize it to whatever you like. So let me just bring the window back up. so you can customize it. So at the moment I've been running a default, which essentially is just doing automatic settings, which I'd say is generally reasonably sufficient. But yes, you can change your filters and customize and do what you like with it, so you can alter the white balance, etc., and saturation. But I think everything looks pretty reasonable default, so I'll return it back to that. The most compelling reason to install this software though is for this microphone noise reduction, as it does make a difference, and I will demonstrate it in a moment. But let me just hide that window for the second. So if I just pause for a moment, you just listen to the background noise. Okay, now I'm going to turn on the microphone noise reduction and let's see what happens. Hopefully you can no longer hear that background humming. Let's turn it off. And now back on. That works perfectly well. Now, if we try and add some extra noise into the background, so typing on the keyboard and maybe clicking my fingers and clapping, let's see how effective that is. So, background noise reduction is currently off. So, that's the keyboard and clapping and snapping fingers, etc. Let's turn it back on and see what happens. Okay, so clicking my fingers, clapping, and let's try typing on the keyboard. And what can happen though, because it should help and reduce some of those noises, but it can distort the actual audio overall, since it is obviously trying to pick up my voice over all these other noises. But hopefully it does work. I'll listen back to my recording and see how that went. Okay, it was a partial success. When I was clicking my fingers and clapping, it did reduce it a bit, not 100%, and it didn't seem to have an effect on the keyboard noise, but it works really well with my PC fan noise. So I'd say, if it's like noises like that, so lower sounding noises, and maybe road traffic coming out from the outside that's coming into your room, then it'll work perfectly well with that. So certainly going to make a difference, and I'd guess useful enough for the purpose it's designed for. And finally, the privacy shutter. So let's test that now. Well, that works. There you go. After finishing all the tests and looking back at the footage, I noticed that the image was getting colder and colder, and that was due to the auto settings adjusting to the changing light throughout the day of the time I was recording this video. So I went in and I manually adjusted the exposure. I set to manual, and also I've tweaked the white balance, taking that off auto as well, and it's a lot better. I think the skin tones look a lot better, and no longer having the problem with overexposure. The other thing I've done, which I think is going to be helpful for this camera, is I've got a third light which is on, just hanging from the ceiling here, a fairly big video light, and I'm splashing it into the background, and I think that really helps, having good ambient light in the background for this camera. So yeah, you do need to do a few things to get the most out of it, but once it's there, it's not bad. I think it looks pretty good to me. Okay, we're pretty much done here other than the summary. Now, as a web camera, I think it does a good job once you've got the lighting set up and you manually set those adjustments like I mentioned already. And once you're there, it's a pretty decent looking web camera. Microphone is excellent in this web camera. I've used a lot of more expensive web cameras that have terrible microphones, and this is actually pretty usable, so very serviceable microphone in there, along with the noise cancellation as well, which is a nice feature, so that's an added bonus. But yeah, overall pretty good. The autofocus is strong on this one. It's really good at locking in and sorting itself out. I like that. No problems with the autofocus. Again, I've used more expensive webcams and I've found that sometimes the actual autofocus can sort of go out of focus and lock in place. Never had a problem with this one. It's absolutely really stable, so you can trust it. I liked that as well. Otherwise, not a bad web camera for the money. I think it does the job. Perfectly good for I guess home office usage. If you're using it for streaming, I guess it'd be fine for that. If you make the image smaller and you're putting it at the corner of the stream. Would I be happy to use this for full screen YouTube video recording? I'd say it's not quite there. It's not good enough for that. But, fair enough, you just spend more money, get a better web camera for that type of usage. This is something which is, a fairly good general all-rounder for its purpose, I think, and for the price, I think it's actually pretty reasonable. Yeah, as I said, as long as you get the lighting right and you do some manual adjustments, it's a decent looking picture and I'm pretty happy with it. So And that's the review for this web camera, guys, the EMEET SmartCam S600. Looks like that, and that's the box. A little bit torn up, but that's fair enough. It's just a box. But there you go, guys. Hope you found this useful. Take it easy. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.